Okay, class, well, it is January 30th. It's a new week in our class, and the focus is on authentic learning and designing with technology. So, as a reminder, I'm going to be grading your meaningful learning assignments that you handed in last week. And just for a notification, too, that you need to know that as you submit assignments in the Dropbox, I might go ahead and grade them early before the due date, as long as you have submitted them there. So just be sure that when you do submit something to the Dropbox, it is ready to go. It's ready for me to grade, because I like to get a little bit of a leg up on the grading even before due date sometimes. So be aware of that. Also, as a reminder, if you have not yet signed up for the Intentional Tech Talk and Integration Recipe on this sign-up sheet here, make sure you do so. So sign up. Have a time that you plan on presenting, and then make sure you do that presentation before the end of the week. Again, there's the directions are right here. So just remember to do that as well. And here are the activities for this week. So Chapter 4, you're going to be reading that. It's called Designing with Technologies, and then you'll actually watch this presentation about designing with technology. After that, you're going to do some technology exploration. This is the first week that we have an opportunity to do this. So what you're going to do is go to our wiki and look at the tools for student design projects and explore some design-oriented tools there. Don't just look at them, but get into them and play around. That means you have to create something with the tool that you have chosen and spend some good time on it this week. And then what you're going to do later on in this week is you're going to share what you have created on this week's discussion board. So it might be completed, it might be sort of a beginning of something you're creating, but it's something that you're going to share this week on the discussion board. So here's the tools for students' design projects, and you can kind of explore some of the tools that you think might be interesting for you and what you intend to teach or what you are currently teaching. So then the Design Technologies discussion board for this week is called It's My Creation. That comes actually from the Weird Science song from back in the, I don't know, maybe the 80s or early 90s. It's My Creation. Anyway, what you're going to do is you're going to look at the design technology resources on the class wiki, like the assignment says, and then pick one and post a link to it on this discussion board so that others can see it, then tell a little about it. And then you'll respond to 2 other students' posts with what you think about their creations. And so this gives you an opportunity really to spend some time exploring the technologies on your own and finding ones that maybe you think will work well with your own experience and your own topic and subject area as a teacher. So that's the It's My Creation discussion boards. You'll have a few more of those as the semester goes along to do. And so this is your first chance to do this on design technologies. Okay, well, as we talk about authentic technologies, we're talking about authentic learning. And I just wanted to start out by talking about a project like this, or a question like this anyway. Train A, traveling 70 miles per hour, leaves Westford heading toward Eastford, 260 miles away. At the same time, train B, traveling 60 miles per hour, leaves Eastford heading toward Westford. When do the 2 trains meet? How far from each city do they meet? Well, this question, hopefully you're not actually figuring out the answer, but this question is an example of what is not authentic learning. It's not authentic learning just to add a few physical or interesting details to a word problem. And a lot of what we talk about with authentic learning is from a lot of Jan Harrington's work down in Australia. She's a theorist on educational authenticity and authentic learning with technology. So this is not authentic learning. A couple of examples here. This is not authentic learning. 2x plus 1 equals 7. Solve for x. And 1/2 plus 3/4. Or if you just add a pizza onto that, it doesn't make it authentic learning, she would argue. There are also some funny questions that you can ask, but anyway, usually authentic learning is not the kind of learning that happens on the remembering and understanding phase of the Bloom's taxonomy, or the skills and concepts, or the recall and reproduction level on Webb's depth of knowledge. It usually has to be higher order learning in order for it to be authentic learning. And it's not drill and practice. like we see so often in education. Instead, authentic learning has these elements. It has an authentic context, authentic activity, expert performances, multiple perspectives, collaboration, reflection and articulation, coaching and scaffolding, and authentic assessment. So these are some of the official items that authentic learning must have as part of it. And you'll be challenged in a few weeks to create a lesson plan or to take a previous lesson plan that maybe isn't very authentic and then to make it more authentic by adding a few of these items into it. So let's talk about what these items are all about. But first, we want to make the point that authentic learning is probably not going to be as authentic in the lower elementary grades or in preschool as much as it could be maybe in high school or middle school. So you have to kind of scale things back to match the level of students that you have when you create authentic learning. That's just something to remember that's important. So first, authentic learning has an authentic context, and that includes a physical or virtual environment that reflects the way the knowledge will be used in real life. So in other words, we have to find some kind of environment or some kind of context that makes the learning to be authentic. And we also have to preserve the complexity of the real life setting. So there's some kind of real life setting that we're mimicking with our authentic learning. We try to preserve the complexity of that. And then authentic contexts provide the purpose and motivation for learning. And as an example of an authentic context, here is a field trip. So that's a very authentic context, right? Students are actually going out in the field and learning about the various items and objects in the real world that they are learning about. So authentic context. And as an example of this, let me pull up a student project that they have created that provides another authentic context. And in using technology in some kind of interesting way. So right here we have the Twihistory project is what it's called, Twitter history. And these people have used technology, the Twitter interface, to live tweet the sinking of the Titanic. So I think that's kind of interesting, actually. We have different people who've chosen different roles. There's Jack Phillips, there's Captain Smith, there's Harold Bride, and in this case, there are people they're live tweeting the event, and they start at a certain time, and then they say, here's when the Titanic hits the iceberg, and then we are going to live tweet this event over the next several hours. And so these are students who've actually gone through and studied the lives and experiences of the people who they have, Captain Smith or Harold Bride or whoever else it is. And they have to tweet what that person might have just done. So they say, just grab my lifebelt from under my bunk along with some boots and an extra jacket. We reloaded Lifeboat 2 with 36 women. I strapped Philip's life jacket on his back and told him to put his boots on. He just laughs and tells me to check on the lifeboats. All the lifeboats have been lowered, all rockets fired, working on the collapsible lifeboats. So that's an example of sort of an authentic context being put onto a technology, sort of an interesting example of that. So moving on, I might not be able to cover this whole presentation today, but we can cover some of it next week as well. Authentic activity, and this one has an asterisk next to it because it's probably the most important element of authentic learning, is that students are involved in an activity that is authentic. And so an authentic activity has real-world relevance. It's not just a school activity, it's something that connects to the real world outside of school. It's complex and ill-defined. It's not ill-defined for students, but it's meaning that it's ill-defined, meaning that students can make choices about how to proceed and that multiple different responses to the activity might be available. Not every activity that students complete is the same as each other or every project they complete. And we're talking about longer time periods, days or weeks rather than minutes or hours. Although, again, in the lower grades, maybe minutes or hours is appropriate for authentic activities as we scale them back to meet the level of our students. And here's an example of an authentic activity, the shoe store. They've created a shoe store in an elementary classroom. Or actually, that looks like a media center, but anyway. They're selling shoes. Many of us in the Aberdeen area are familiar with business fairs that they have where students have to gather a product and try to market that product and sell it. And so that's an example of an authentic activity, because it's the kind of thing that is done outside of school, right? People are selling things outside of school, they're creating businesses, becoming entrepreneurs, and so forth. Expert performance is another part of authentic learning. And that means basically that students have some kind of access to the way an expert would think and act. That there's some way for them to understand how some expert would do this task, and how that may be different from a novice. And there are opportunities for experts and students to share stories, and expertise is distributed. So an example of that here is we have an expert on Skype, right? And that expert is coming to the class and sharing something to the class about how they could do an authentic activity. And so that's the picture. But there's also another example with the Foxfire books. And these are for sale on Amazon, the Foxfire book, Hog Dressing, Log Cabin Building, Mountain Crafts and Foods. What this is an Appalachian village that was featured in Georgia, actually. Not too far. I was actually able to visit the Foxfire village. And if you look at the editor, Elliot Wigington, and read about this person, he was an American oral historian, folklorist, writer, and former educator. He developed the Foxfire Project, a writing project that led to a magazine and series of best-selling Foxfire books, 12 volumes in all. These were based on articles by high school students from Rabun County, Georgia. So in fact, this was a high school teacher. Elliot Wigington was a high school teacher, and he designed this authentic activity where his students would have to explore the Appalachian culture in Rabun County, Georgia, and write about what people used to do. And so they would work with people that knew about these things and create directions and books about them. And what started out as a small project for one class of high school students became, in language arts, became a very large 12-volume project in which high school students created these amazing books, and they became bestsellers. It's pretty amazing how much work they were able to do and how much time and how authentic this actually became. But it has definite real-world relevance, and it's certainly accessing the experts and showing their expertise in this project. Multiple perspectives. Authentic learning activities are examined by students from many different points of view, and there's often information seeking as part of these activities, and a wide variety of learning resources and materials are drawn upon for authentic learning. Now remember, again, if you're a lower elementary grade teacher, there may not be the opportunity to do a lot of information seeking. But here there is an example of students going to an art, actually to a museum, I believe, and doing some clay. Some cultural perspectives may be involved here. And then there's also an example of a technology that helps us to do some information seeking, and that is the World Book Online, World Book Kids website. And I have to log in, but anyway, the World Book Kids is a great tool that allows you to actually access some very easy articles to read for kids. So as they're seeking out information to do these authentic activities, World Book Kids can give them that more simple information that they might need. Okay, well that's about all we have time for this week. I'll continue talking about the different elements of authentic learning. Let me get to show those here in a later week, but I want to give you that information as we talk about it. We've got through about half of them, and as you think about your authentic learning assignment, think about how you might be able to incorporate a few more of these into an existing lesson in preparation for completing that assignment. So have a great week, and we'll see you later.